Alrighty guys, welcome back to Running for Reels. We are ready to go with PJ Arts of Darkness running The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. Go ahead and take it away. I think your mic's muted on stream. I think also mute the stream audio on yours, but yeah, the game audio I think is coming through, but your mic is not.
Sauron will use his
You check again?
to destroy the people of Rohan.
That's good.
Okay, sorry about that, guys. I was muted and I didn't realize that this was a small blunder, but now we're live. We're here again. I'm bringing you Lord of the Rings: Return of the King from EA Games, 2003, almost 20 years old. Fantastic game, movie licensed game, full of action, playing the heroes of Middle Earth, chopping down orcs, and I'm gonna walk through you with the starting away from the end of Two Towers here at the Battle of Helm's Deep. Gandalf coming in to save the day, all the way to the fires of Mount Doom at the end of the movie. Well, hopefully this isn't too much of a spoiler for anyone, but here we are. It is action-packed. It is amazing, and I'm gonna show you the whole playthrough of the main story levels. We're backed up here by yeah. Go ahead, man.
Yeah. So obviously I'm here again. Big shocker. So one of the ways that this run is actually really cool as a sequel game from the Two Towers is the Two Towers ends with everybody running back and retreating back into Helm's Deep, and Return of the King literally picks up right from that moment with this cutscene.
Perfectly
so you
timed.
can see, yeah, it could not be better timed in where this game will pick up.
So yeah, the game is going to start up right here. We are going to begin right as we get control of Gandalf. Back to what Zoltuk was saying. Zoltuk was saying was about the game carrying him from one over to the next. It is done by the same company, Redwood Shores, as now Visceral. And yeah, they brought many more games after that. But here we go. We're about to start here in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Pretty standard opening level, introduces you to the core gameplay mechanics. The game is full of your swift attacks, your fierce attacks, your parry, your push, your ranged, your killing moves, and your action buttons that interact with some of the game things you'll see later on. The game is full of a number of dial-up combos that we unlock later on through upgrades. This has a progression system. For characters like Gandalf, it makes him even stronger. So, pretty standard dial-up combo here I have. It involves left trigger and A, left trigger A, left trigger A. Occasionally some fierce attacks to, speed attacks to ward them off, but left trigger A is a pretty good combo, I'd say.
Yeah, so with what's going on right now in the game is we're in the tutorial level, and being in the tutorial level, the game just has, the game gives you unlimited ammo, so when he holds L and A and he fires, he can just spam those quick shots without having to worry about running out of ammunition. Now, hopefully, we don't get
We're
a
good, we're
Helm's
good.
Deep glitch. We're good. All right, that's what we like.
There is sometimes a
So-
30-second delay for no apparent reason. It's just some janky thing in the code. Yeah, Joe's like, you're quite
Yes.
familiar with it. They're all familiar with
Yeah, oh my
it. The whole
Gosh, the amount of runs that you can lose because it's a 30-second time loss right off the bat. And as you can see, our estimate's only an hour and a half, and about 10 to 15 minutes of that, well, actually 20 minutes of that is cutscenes and result screens in the console version of the game. So it takes up a good chunk of the run. Like right now, the world record without any cutscenes on PC is an hour and 10 minutes. So to have a 30-second time loss in the first 2 minutes of the game can be really, really, really rough.
Absolutely. There's a number of, on top of cutscenes, there are a number of sections within the game that are either auto-scrollers or they're completely warped by RNG, as we'll talk about a particular level coming up. But so far, we have it pretty good with this Helm's Deep mission, the first one. We're going to just go in after this cutscene, we're going to buy our first few upgrades and actually introduce one of the game's few skips that are present. This game isn't particularly heavy on like warps or skips or weird out of bounds tricks. It's more just straight cutthroat action or just running through the level, hoping the orcs are not too mean or the other enemies that you may come across. Now in the PC version, you can normally zoom through these levels, but we are on console, and we just get the satisfaction of watching the animations go through.
It's weird because with the console version of this game, while it is slower by a pretty significant margin, by about 10 minutes, the console version of the game does win out in consistency. So one of the issues that the PC version has, and it is very random between PC builds, is some people have had issues with the game not being able to run properly on PC, and it'll crash a bunch, or it'll lag for some reason. It doesn't really make any sense. Other people, like myself, the PC version runs perfectly fine. Any crash that has happened has been my own fault. And so I'm able to run on the PC version no problem whatsoever, and it's no biggie. But another runner, Maxi Lobes, he's tried 100,000 things, and the game still does not work for him on PC.
On my particular game, I get a weird optimization issue where the game will just randomly freeze up at points and the screen will black out. The whole setup and layout just gets like starts freaking out, and it totally just affects the run. It is unfortunate with the PC being unstable, despite it having the best like amenities for running through it, like the fast menuing. And even in particular, there are some mechanics such as the character powers that can be used in the in the middle of some cutscenes, and it's a weird just programming thing they have between the different versions. In terms of optimization.
Yeah, it's really weird. I don't think the PC version was ported by any different company or anything. I haven't looked into it too much, but the PC version is definitely, in my opinion, the PC version is a lot more lenient than the console version. I think I have found that aside from just, the ability to be able to scroll through things faster, the PC version is a lot nicer. You don't die nearly as easily, and that'll become a lot more apparent in Shelob's Lair. If we were to do like a side-by-side comparison of PC and console, you would really be able to see it, but you don't see it too much in the console version of the game. Now, looking at the level that we are going into right now, we're taking very specific routing. So last year when this game was shown off, the co-op version was shown up. And in the co-op version of the game, you are limited to playing the game in a very, very, very specific order. But in the solo run, you can play through all three of the individual paths in any order that you want. and those are Path of the Hobbit, Path of the King, and Path of the Wizard. We start off with Path of the Hobbit because hobbits are squishy.
Yeah, Samwise may be a superhero in the movies. He may be the unstoppable force, but unfortunately here he does come up, no pun intended, a little short in terms of stats, movement, attack. Poor Sam, poor Sam. But we are going to see him, what he can do in this level. We are going to run past all the battle going on here in Osculius. We are not going to mess around these orcs. We're just going to try to run past them, as these guys are bullies. They are mean, they don't like you, they don't want you to play the game, they don't want you to win, they do not want you to pass go, they do not want you to collect you $200. It is unbelievable. But
Yeah.
we will persevere.
And another key kind of gimmick within this level is you'll see up in that top right corner, there's that meter of this ring wraith that is spawning, that is filling up. If that meter fills up, we will fail the level. And you're probably wondering, okay, it fills up, but how do you drain it? Well, you drain it by being inside of a building. Anytime that you are outside and up on a rooftop, that meter will be filling up. But anytime that you go down, and anytime that you are hidden underneath a roof or anything like that, then you don't have to worry about it nearly. The meter will drain, you don't have to worry about it, the ring wraith can't find you. And since we're speedrunners, we don't have to worry about it that much. If you do get stuck in an area for any long period of time, it can be an issue, but for the majority of this run, we won't have to worry about it at all.
Yeah, coming, as you can see, there's groups of orcs. They like to come in, and you get these archers, which are really obnoxious enemies throughout the game. No matter, not just this level, almost any level, they have weird, unpredictable attack patterns. Well, one predictable animation's more like it. They do persist level through level, whether they're undead, whether they're Urks, whatnot. We're back here. Now, it doesn't seem too bad right now, but if I were to get hit or bundled up by some of these groups of orcs, they will just stand here and body block me from doing things. And that can cause, it builds up in the time loss area. Now, luckily we haven't had it too bad so far, and I've been having to do a lot of juking, a lot of dipping around in and out. It is helpful to move the joystick as you're running around, just so you're less likely just to get hit, as sometimes the frame of which the orcs will attack, it can be wider than it seems, and they do have 3 different types of attack animations. Sometimes they come with that double swing, sometimes they'll come with a lunge, and sometimes they just might wait and do a delayed hit that will come in. And sometimes they will change their attack animation in between one, so they can just kind of surprise you. And even in some levels, they might decide to just either do nothing, and then all of a sudden, in a split second, they just want to swing and attack you. And it does add to the level of frustration, but so a lot of it has to be predicting what the orcs are kind of going to do. And part of the issue is something that we'll bring up later on, is this game runs on a fixed camera, as you may notice. I do not have control of this camera. Now, it is nice for cinematic purposes, but it can be an issue if there are enemies waiting outside of the screen to come in and swipe at you. The enemies will take full advantage of that, the fact that it is a 16:9 or 4.3 aspect ratio, and they know my vision is kind of limited.
Yeah, the enemies, they can do a really good job at like hopping out and just sneak attacking you, and you're like, okay, I don't know where you came from, but now you're beating me up. And one thing that I've learned too with running this, and I don't know how common knowledge it is, but I don't even know if it's even actually accurate, but from what I've seen is that if an enemy attacks you and they miss, they don't parry or hit you, they're significantly less likely to, like, their time between their next attack is significantly less. So as you can see, that orc there, he swung at him, jumped back. I just realized I'm speaking this while being on a delay, so it's going to look a little awkward. But if you pay attention, an orc will jump at him, and if he misses, he'll kind of just like strafe around and kind of wait and see what he's going to do. He doesn't actually immediately go to try and get an attack.
Absolutely.
Whereas with the ones that if you parry or you get hit by them, they're a lot more likely to get hit, to start attacking again right away.
Ooh, that's a little unlucky. I got blocked off from the switch here, and this just kind of happens sometimes. They decide they don't want you to lift open the switch, but we're just gonna give it another try again. And that's a little bit better. We just have to sit here and parry, and unfortunately small delay, but so far we got through the level pretty good. And that is unfortunately a choke point which some runs can die, which is a good reason why we start this level as opposed to the others, is with the level itself being kind of jerky, and as well as that ending gate can cause resets if we're aiming for more like competitive records.
Yeah, there you can get stuck there pretty badly, and if you're not paying attention, you can actually die. And these games, for some reason, they decided to make them very, very punishing. So if you die in these games, you're either reverted back to your most previous checkpoint, which some levels don't even have a checkpoint, or you just have to restart the level entirely. And in an instance like this, thankfully, we didn't die, so we can just keep going and we don't have to worry about it. But that's when you get to the point of being a runner of the caliber that PJ is. Dying is it's still possible, but it is significantly less likely. To give you guys an idea, PJ is an incredible runner of this game. He holds the world records for any percent on PC and console. He holds a New Game Plus. I think you have both New Game Plus world records for both PC and console as well.
Not quite New Game Plus. Well, I just don't have a recorded it into the SRC just yet. I haven't touched it too much for the console, but on emulator I did a couple times, and I think emulator also have the any percent record.
Yes, you do have the emulator record. So as you can see, PJ has
I've played this game before.
Incredible times all across the board throughout this game. I'm currently actually, after this marathon, will be working on trying to beat his PC records. It's going to be difficult because they are good times, so yeah, PJ is a very, very strong runner, and so I'm not too worried about seeing deaths or anything like that from him in this run, as long as we get through Shelob's Lair, okay? Shelob's Lair is also a very, very strong choke point because the spiders that are here do a lot of damage, and we are still a very, very low-leveled character. We're not high-leveled. We're not like a level 20 Gandalf going into Shelob's Lair. No, we're a level 1 Sam. So this is definitely meant to be harder levels because they have late-game strength with these enemies, but also you have early game stats. So that's the biggest reason why we play Path of the Hobbit first.
That's a very good point, that the enemies do have a kind of fixed difficulty throughout. So while you may be playing a character like Gandalf, who's strong because he's a wizard, playing someone like a Hobbit means you're playing against the same caliber of enemies as you would. I am gonna just as I go here collect a bit of XP, as going into Shelob with Orcure, there is a nice benefit to being able to do some extra damage. We are gonna just that's a mistake, but that's okay. Playing this game as I do have backup options. I can always just run over here. Normally I can just throw both webs, throw Stroges at both webs and just progress through. There are a few times where I do these little spires on the floor. They do stagger you, they stun you, but you can back hop through some of them. But on the console version, they will eat at some of your health, so I do have to be a little bit careful.
On the console, this is one of the biggest differences between console and PC. On console, some of them will eat through your health. Like, if you're in there too long, you could die pretty quickly. On PC, it doesn't matter how long you're in there. It doesn't do damage. On single player, on co-op, it does damage. I learned that the hard way.
Really? Okay, because I don't have a lot of experience in co-op, so I didn't know all of those. I didn't know about that particular mechanic with the co-op. It shows it just shows how drastic, not just like the version differences, but also like the single and two-player differences go about it.
And not only are like those things different, but there's also a difference in there's a difference in the camera angles. So if you're used to specific muscle memory going from one version to the other, it can be really awkward and kind of jarring to switch it back and forth. So we're getting close to the Shelob fight here. Only have one more big room here. The Shelob fight is a really tough fight, and the reason for that is Shelob does a lot of damage, and if you don't understand how Shelob works, she can hit you all the time. You have to be really smart on how you're doing your damage against Shelob, because if you are doing too much, if you try to do too much at once, then if you try to be too aggressive, then Shelob will just punish you. But if you're smart with it and you do a good variations between parrying and or cures, then you will be okay. This is why in this run we opt to go and get the or cure, because it's a combo that is a 2 speed attacks and a fierce attack. So for PJ it'll be AAY. And it is a very strong ability to have. So we want to try and use it as much as possible, because it does advance her phase quicker than if we were to just be using our speed attack.
And including the off chance of the very rare case of being in perfect mode, which while you are, it does deal double damage with your physical attacks. So there is a small chance that you could be in perfect mode when or cure, and that you could progress the boss fight even further. We're just gonna move away from the shield here to pull her in. We don't want to stand in this massive spiralings. My health is looking pretty bad, but I do kind of know how to like weave around so I don't fall in too much trouble.
Yeah, one of the things you have to learn while running this game is how to not get absolutely destroyed by learning how to play around lower health, especially when you are doing fights like Shelob. Now, normally we wouldn't be opting to kill these smaller spiders, but since health drops are purely RNG, and we're in a marathon setting, we want to be safer and not die. So it was really smart of PJ to take the time to run back, make sure that he wasn't getting a whole lot of damage from making sure that he had the health that he needed to stay alive and not have to die and take the time loss. Especially when you're this deep into a fight, a death like this can be pretty fun.
And to add to the game's even further difficulty, you could be at points of critical health and you will not get a single health drop. The game adds even more unfair RNG in that sense, where the game will just decide they don't want to give you like health drops, or it doesn't want to give you ammo drops. They just don't want you to progress. And there's even some points where they kind of tease you, where you get yellow health and you get a green potion, which refills your health by a whole bunch. And there's times where sorry, I'm gonna need a second to make sure I kill the spider here.
This is a really scary position to be in.
Yeah, takes a lot of patience. When you're in these critical spots, you just have to take your time. Make sure you don't get... Because unfortunately, in this game, and the last one, Two Towers, hit stun can be really bad. You can just be getting absolutely mauled by enemies, as the recovery time is kind of laughable. When other games you might like start flashing, have invincibility frames, these and the previous one are a little less forgiving up front, so just gotta be patient going through some of these moments.
And one of the big ways that this run will differ from Two Towers that was shown off last night is Two Towers is a lot more friendly on its health drops. You can pretty much, if you're at like a slightly low health period, they will be dropping health all the time. In this game, no. The lower your health is, the higher chances you have of a health drop, but it's not confirmed in any way, shape, or form.
No, not at all. And the same can be said about ammo drops too. You could be at points where you really want ammo drop, especially in like levels where you find lots of enemies, and the game will just laugh in your face, and they won't have the goods.
No, they will indeed not have the goods. So now that we've gotten through Shelob's Lair, which is the last major kind of scary point for Path of the Hobbit, we're going to be moving on to Path of the Wizard. The reason behind switching over to Path of the Wizard at this point is Path of the Wizard has a notoriously RNG heavy level, Minas Tirith Courtyard. We'll talk about it when we get closer to it and kind of how it functions. But a runner by the name of 7swagmuffin7 was actually the one to initially make the switch from being running Path of the King first and then moving over to Path of the Wizard, because we wanted to just knock out the higher RNG section and not have to worry so much about like once we get through, it's pretty much like we go through Path of the Hobbit, where it's very execution based, it's a lot less than RNG, but you're still have a lot of high risk of death. Then we go from there to RNG. We bait out the RNG through Courtyard, and then by the time we get to Path of the King, it's just smooth sailing with our boy Legolas pretty much all the way to the end, and just trying not to die, aside from the King of the Dead fight, which again, that's something that's quite a ways down the road, so we'll explain that more as we get deeper into it.
So we're diving now here into Road to Isengard. We're kind of circling back again to the end of Two Towers. Gandalf's, well, on the Road to Isengard, chasing down the last of these Uruk-hai, interacting with the Ents, and we're going to end up in that famous Break the Dam scene. But so far, we're just going to progress through the forest. We are back, and it feels feels great to have our wizard again. No offense to Sam, but we're going to show off our character power finally, and that's this wizard bubble. And it's like getting the Starman in Mario. You're invincible for a bit. Anything that touches you pretty much disintegrates, with a few exceptions, of course. But we are, as you can see, we are going to go through and kill enemies, which is weird because in the Sam levels, I wasn't really doing that. But now the reason for this is another community member, Rubeetle, discovered that killing a certain number of enemies before reaching the next session will increase the amount of spawns that will happen in this fight coming up between the Ents and the Orcs. And I believe
it was really odd because we would just be going through this section running through, but then when we would get to that fight, we'd be losing a lot of time for no reason. And then Rubeetle was like, hey, I killed everybody, and it made this difference. And we were like, oh my gosh, it really makes that big of a difference? That's crazy.
And here we are with this fight. You see a ton of enemies just spawning in there, and that normally doesn't happen if you just run through. It must be something to do with the game's coding and like the spawn manipulation, as some of these games do have a limit on how many like characters or AI can be on a screen at a time. It is still, the technology is still being developed, and I must say this game looks very impressive for the time it was released, as many of the other movie licensed games coming out at this time just didn't have that same level of quality control and care. So I feel we are very fortunate to have this level of like graphics and gameplay and sound. And I should mention, this game, as you saw earlier, is THX certified. So if you're on surround sound, this game has quite explosive volumes of sound. Explosions will just rattle any bass, that sort of deal. Quite one of the number of amenities going in if one takes care into that, especially with Howard Shore's amazing Lord of the Rings music.
True. Howard Shore is the goat of movie cinematics.
Unbelievably so. Did it for a whole trilogy nonetheless. Up there with like John Williams.
He did the music for this trilogy, he did the music for The Hobbit, as well as he helped out with the music for the Rings of Power Amazon series.
Ah, yeah, that too. He's behind it all. That's his throne. He is the world record holder in that.
So this is a section where it can be a little weird to figure out exactly how it functions, because the orcs they have two areas where they can spawn, but their rate of spawn is different. And exactly what that is, we have no idea. I totally just realized I sent a message in another Discord and was like, hey, I would love some help with this, and then didn't check to see if anybody responded. Awkward.
Social media.
So, yeah, so now we're going to be heading out to getting close to the end of this level. There's an interesting strat here with these towers that we're going to be seeing. So, normally in your casual playthrough, you would see, oh, these towers have explosives by them. I should blow them up.
Fire.
Well, apparently, in the speed run, blowing them up is a bad thing. We don't know exactly why, and I think this has to do again with the spawn rates and stuff like that. But if you if you blow up these towers, then when we get to the final area of this level, then there will be archers that will spawn that will try and fight our little ant buddy. But if we don't destroy the towers, we don't have that issue. It is such a random thing, but at the same time, it's really nice because it makes this section with the end here significantly more smooth sailing.
It is quite a bizarre. It is a bizarre foresight because it almost is like you're punished for destroying the forces of Isengard without even realizing it. It's a total. You would never think that not destroying the towers would have some sort of benefit, but here we are. And speaking of benefit, Gandalf's incredibly long range means he's able to like get some nice coverage on hitting his dam, and this poor guy is just gonna be sitting here waiting for us, wanting to fight. Much like the sword guy in Indiana Jones, he is just gonna miss all the training he did for this fight.
I have yet to figure out where the exact position is on that. I have tried it so much and I still can't get it. I don't know if that's just a PC thing or not.
From my experience, there are times where I've tried to do the trick and I automatically start aiming at the berserker down there. I think it entirely has to do with that berserker decides to strafe towards your direction. I got lucky and he just stood where he was, but through some other runs I did, if he decides to like hover towards you or like to next to you, then you kind of lose that chance, and you start shooting him, he's gonna start running and you have to fight him. But I find going down there, you also avoid some orc spawns coming from the hill above, as you saw.
Yep.
It goes to show that like even after all like playing this game, it's amazing how like some stuff is still relatively unsolved despite despite having community members like actively digging into different parts of the game. Even the game's code, we have a community member, Sobbling Horizon, has actually gone into like the numbers and statistics with it, and I praise that kind of like dedication. And I think he's the one who developed the ability to turn off cutscenes for that specific category.
Yes, and that has been one of the best things about running on PC, is we have a modded executable that allows you to be able to... The game just automatically skips these FMV cutscenes, which A, saves you from about 20 minutes of sitting through unskippable cutscenes, or no, 10 minutes of unskippable cutscenes, but also saves you from copyright. Because a lot of times, the copyright on YouTube can be a battle of figuring out, like, hey, you're using our material, and then we're like, actually, we're not as part of the game.
Yes, that is the difficulty I had with my runs too at first, but I think now that because when I had streamed this game, sometimes I use I use a random like image filter during the cutscenes. I think that helps mitigate the possibility of using like footage from New Line, because they can't tell, right?
It definitely does help. No, but I think also too, there has been, because of some Lord of the Rings like licensing and stuff, it has been a little bit nicer on what they allow. It's weird.
It's unfortunate because some people, like even like my friends, talk about why has that game never had like a remaster or like one of Two Towers. And it's unfortunately these games that are all licensed by the EA and movies, their copyright did run out in 2010 under that license, so they are stuck in a licensing hell where they can't really redistribute these games. They can't remake them. They can't really like touch them at all. They're just almost like abandonware in a way. They can't like continue to support unless like anything is like community related. That includes like Two Towers, this one, Battle for Middle Earth, I think Conquest as well, if I'm correct. I'm gonna have asking.
No, it very much is a licensing battle, and it's not one that I think anybody has been in the biggest way to try and do anything about. Just because as much as a lot of people are trying to warrant a remaster, right now, Lord of the Rings games have not been getting the best amount of love, thanks to, like, I'm just gonna say it, thanks Gollum. You kind of made it a little rough.
Yeah, without going too much into Gollum, yeah, that was really unfortunate for Lord of the Rings video games. That's all I'll say. But now we have some time to just take it a little bit easy. This is an auto-scroll part of the level for about 3.5 minutes. We're just, you saw something similar to this in the Two Towers game yesterday. Luckily, it's not for as long and it's not nearly as brutal, as a lot of these enemies are just the melee sword enemies. We don't have to worry about shields or anything. We can use this time to actually rack up some experience while we wait for these towers to come.
And one of the big differences between this section, between Return of the King and the Two Towers in regards to specifically this section, is at the end of the level, the results screen goes at the same pace in Return of the King, regardless of how many kills that you get. So in Two Towers, the speed of it is determined a lot more by how many kills you get. In Return of the King, it doesn't matter. So PJ could go through and get 500 kills, and it will go the same speed as if he were to get 0. Whereas in Two Towers, if you got 500 kills and did a ladder in the ladder section, then it would very easily be, yeah, you're gonna regret getting your 500 kills.
Interesting, considering since both games were developed by the same company, is a interesting decision to. I understand redeveloping the game and updating it, and it's just funny how different nuances are created between the two games that feel the same but have such drastic and stark differences.
Yes, they can. Yeah, it's weird because we do have some runners. Like, one of the cool things too, though, about between the two games is we do have a lot of crossover. A lot of runners who run the Two Towers also run Return of the King. There are some people, though, who really like running Return of the King but aren't the biggest fans of running the Two Towers. And there are some people who are really big fans of running the Two Towers but not the biggest fans of running Return of the King. It's cool because they're very similar, and that if you're good at one, a lot of the same skills that you use in the Two Towers or Return of the King do translate over, but just because they translate over in that area they're different enough though that they do provide a good amount of variety. And this is coming from somebody who has done over 100 runs of both games. So
well, I can't say I've spent too much time in Two Towers, but I have ran the Aragorn category several times, and I may pick up on it again once I get a physical GameCube copy, as I am able to run console. I'm able to run console games now, so it may be fun to pick up back into it. As you're absolutely right in that both games are similar enough that you can cross over with this similar gameplay mechanics. So we're just about to come up here.
Get back into Two Towers because I want more people to race with, and I haven't been able to race it in a while.
That sounds like fun, I'll tell you that much. So we're gonna come up with these siege towers here. Now it's interesting how the tactics have evolved in dealing with the siege towers. Some runners will opt to go to the far side of the wall. I'm not one of them, but I'm gonna do a very unconventional method of dealing with them. I am not going to use this catapult immediately. In fact, I'm just going to like stand over here, as some of the terrain, as you can see, does not have an actual boundary. There is some terrain I can just like shoot through, and you see that tower is going to drop by that red flashing square is now gone. It is a weird spot that you can shoot from. Discovered it while just grinding through the game. And it's very funny on the New Game Plus mode that we run, being Gandalf in these levels, we have the max level projectile. You can just take them down in a single uncharged shot, which goes to show how Gandalf's progression is incredibly insane, making him the most optimal character for anyone doing the game's unofficial New Game Plus role that was created by the community as a way of doing more speedruns of this game.
One of the best things about speedrunning this game, honestly, is the amount of variety of categories that we have been able to develop. And I'm sure there are even a bunch more that we haven't even thought of yet. Specifically within our category extensions board, we have Fool of a Toque, which is a co-op run where you play as Gandalf and Pippin. We've got some categories where you play only as Gimli. We've got Second Breakfast, which is where you play as Merry and Pippin. We've got there's just so many different ways to speedrun this game that it's one that honestly never really gets old. If you enjoy playing the game and you want some variety, you can go on an any percent grind for a while, and then you can be like, all right, I'm content with this. I'm gonna move on, or you're kind of getting to a slump where you're like, I can't get a run going at any percent. I'm going to go and I'm going to do a run of Second Breakfast, and then I'll come back and run any percent later, because Second Breakfast itself is still a really, really fun category. Because Pippin is super broken, and maybe we'll get a Second Breakfast run here at Running for Reals at some point.
That would be epic.
But that's just because Pippin is such a broken character, and he's super fun to run with. So that makes Second Breakfast a super, super fun category. And shout outs to Dino95HD, who discovered that you can backstab and insta-kill Ring Race in the Black Gate. That's amazing. It's a super funny strat. I absolutely love it. But we've made it through the top of the wall.
Yeah. I think it really showcases what you're saying, like the power of like community, being able to like just take a game like this relatively straightforward and just really expand upon it in different ways. And I've seen other games do that too. They've had their own like community invented categories. That just makes a more dynamic game experience. Not that the game isn't dynamic enough. It just shows like, because there's 9 characters, why not explore more into them?
Absolutely.
So I've actually managed to over-level a little bit, which is, in this case it doesn't affect me too much, but it's nice to have access to some of these higher-end upgrades, as I will eventually want to get into level 8, going to Black 8, for the Perfect Mode upgrade and one of the other combos. And now, to talk about every Return of the King's runner's nightmare, like the king of nightmares for this category, and not just this, but others like New Game Plus and the all levels, and even some of the fun categories. Basically, we're escorting 200 of these civilians, these ladies, in here, and the enemy's attacking while at it. And seems simple, but really, it's right away we're into some chaos. There's orcs coming from multiple sides. There's these shield guys that like to mess with you. Later on, we'll have things like archers coming in, random catapult shots, these armored bully dudes, trolls. As we get into like the 150, it just turns into pandemonium. And the reason I say RNG is, well, I mean, if you're killing all these guys, why don't these, it should be simple enough to get these ladies through. Well, you don't know, because the catapults can hit the civilians too. They can get clogged up in certain areas. The enemies just might decide to either circle around and avoid your attacks. They might decide to gang up on you and stop you from saving them. It is nuts. There's nothing but, as I said, and I'll say it again, pandemonium. And I'm sure Zozox here can absolutely relate, and everyone else who has done this before. As you see, I'm just, despite being a wizard, I'm still not fast enough in clearing all these guys out.
Yeah, this level is so chaotic. It doesn't, like, this is the one level I think that we are trying so hard to try and figure out exactly what we can do to make it work. Because we found that if you kill enemies too quickly, for some reason, things get a little bit more chaotic. If you kill enemies too slowly, things get a little more chaotic. If you don't kill enemies at all, nothing happens. Like, it's just such a...
You can't win for lose.
There's really no good way to handle this level, and it's rough, because it's an RNG fest of a level. Like, there's not really much you can do about it, and I feel like, I don't know, I was gonna say something, but I was gonna say something in regards to it, but I honestly, the more we mess with it, the more confused we end up being. And so if anybody wants to just take a look at this level and be like, oh yeah, no, if you guys just stand here and shoot enemies, or shoot this corner of the wall. Enemies don't spawn, and the civilians will just run straight through. No biggie.
See, right now it looks like I'm doing. It seems like I'm doing relatively well, but in a split moment's notice, you could just be ganged up. You could just not be killing things fast enough, and you're in trouble. Especially like with times you might see on our sub splits or just regular splits, you'll see that we might be going in on greens, and we're making some good times, and all of a sudden you're hitting red, and you're hitting a darker red, and then you're close to being dead. It's so frustrating. I think most of it is the frustration.
So this level, the way exactly it works is it's broken down into 4 phases. It's 0 to 50, 50 to 100, 100 to 150, 150 to 200. Once you hit the 0 to 50 is the most chill because enemies only really come in one wave at a time. When you hit the 100 to 150 is when it gets kind of the most chaotic because you have the orc captains that start spawning. And that was that captain that you saw that had his own separate health bar. They also have armor that you have to break, so it's not like you can just run up and just start wailing on them and they'll die really quickly. As much as we wish it did work out that way, it doesn't always work out that way. Plus, they're uber aggressive and do a lot of damage, and so if you're not paying attention, they can and will kill you very, very mercilessly.
They're very good friends with these shield guys.
That's true. They also like to hang around the shield guys. And then you also get other enemies that are coming through. You can see kind of as the level progresses, more enemies are hanging out, coming in, trying to stop our civilians from escaping. And plus, what is this camera angle? This game does not have the nicest of cameras when you're in this level. It's not as bad on co-op, but it is pretty bad on solo.
That is something we mentioned before, the camera angle, and yeah, it is, that problems crank up to like 11, especially with the issues with perspective. You don't know how close or you're far up to someone.
Yeah. And then you hit 150, and everything just becomes absolute chaos. Enemies just non-stop coming in from both sides. You have trolls that can come in. It's just a constant mess of stuff happening the entire time. We haven't figured out exactly, like, there's no good way to be able to do crowd control in this section. Because enemies are just coming in all the time. You feel like you're running around like a chicken with your head cut off. And you're just kind of hoping and praying that you position yourself in the right way. Now, if we could actually figure out the rate of like the locations of where the refugees spawn, then that would help out a lot because we could kind of route the level around the spawn point and then kind of have it where like every little bit we circle back and block and clear out the area where they would be escaping. So yeah, because there's 2 basic kind of choke points. They can either be choked where they spawn in, or they can be at a choke point at the very end, at that one door they're trying to get through, which is a tiny door for as big of a city as Minas Tirith is.
Oh man.
But it's fun.
Unbelievably so. Now, luckily with our upgrade being Gandalf upgrade projectiles, some of our shots are going to help to deal with some of the shields. But even then, as you can see, we're trying to deal with this armor guy. And here's one example. This armor guy's in their face, and these trolls are swatting away at these civilians. And there's another, it's hard to see, but there's another guy coming in. And even just that few seconds of me not being able to deal with this troll and him killing those people is just going to amount to, like, added up time loss. It's just kind of unfortunate. Luckily, I've had enough practice with the combat to try and, like, kind of fight my way out of there. But for people trying to pick up on the run, I can definitely relate to, like, that level of frustration. It was definitely difficult for me when I was still running it for the first few times. You're in, situations, it can get very, very stressful.
I would say when starting out, this level is definitely going to be one of the harder ones to get through just because of the way that just because of how chaotic the level is and everything that can happen. It can be a mess. For some people, it's fine, but for other people, it can be a shock. For me, I played this game a lot as a kid, but I still struggle a lot with this level, and now this becomes the biggest run killer for me.
The issue also becomes if anyone doing this casually was to play on a higher difficulty. As you may have noticed, there was no checkpoint going into this level. You could be at the 195 mark right here, but if you are dead, you are dead. You are starting over. You are going right back to the very beginning dealing with this. And if I was to die, it would be an incredibly insufferable time loss. It would be at least a good 8 to 9 minutes. But luckily we did get through. We got through the tough part.
Yeah, we made it through here, so we've gotten through the biggest choke points in the run, so we're still vibing pretty all right. All we have to do right now is just get through Path of the King, which honestly is one of the best. Is my favorite section of the entire run is Path of the King. That's why, like, no matter what, I try to do everything that I can to get or run it to that point. And if it's like dead after Pelennor Fields and whatever. But to get a run to Path of the King just feels good. So that's always kind of like the goal that I shoot for.
I do agree with the Path of the King stuff being great. We're going to get some of the most cool design levels, like this whole Paths of the Dead. We are going to have, for anyone playing casually, they have access to 3 characters, not just 1. And Legolas is pretty crazy with his projectiles too, as you'll demonstrate what his arrows are capable of and how much damage they can output. Which is why we do pick him over Aragorn and Gimli. There's gonna be, so with these upgrades, we will not be seeing Gandalf until we get to the Black Gate, but it will come when that time comes. But now we're just gonna roll right in. We're gonna pick Legolas here. We will be watching, and now at this point, the movie cutscenes are going to be a little less long at this point. So as the game, at least we have that as the game progresses. There aren't as many of these movie scenes, which are fun for a first-time playthrough, but I know for anyone who wants to do this run, it can be redundant if they do have to reset and reset and reset. It does take going through them.
Okay, I just had like a really random thought.
Go for it.
Future runs. What if we just change the route again and do Path of the Wizard, like we do Helm's Deep, and then instead of doing Osgiliath and Shulub's Lair right away, we do Path of the Wizard, because regardless of how good your Path of the Hobbit is, you can still lose your run in Courtyard. Why don't we just get through Courtyard first, and then we just do Path of the Wizard or Path of the Hobbit all the way up through Kidas Ungol. Then we just go Southern Gate, Pelennor Fields, Black Gate, Crackadoo.
That is a good thought, and that is definitely worth trying. And that goes to show, even as we're talking now, there's still ways to solve the run and solve sections of the game. Getting to Courtyard sooner could help with less frustrating runs, as Courtyard does come in around that like 35 to 40 minute marker. If we get around to like the 15, or if we're on like to the 20 or 25 minute marker, that extra time can make a difference when grinding out through this game.
It was made by those who are dead.
Exactly. So yeah, it's the things that we think about a lot, and it's always hard to know kind of like what will actually work. And honestly, you could do this run in theoretically whatever order you were not, just because you're running at a top level doesn't mean you have to do the route that everybody else does. As long as you optimize it within your own viewing, then do what you want, do Path of the King first if you want. Like, it doesn't matter.
Absolutely, there is some like malleability in doing the order of the levels. It's not as one way as the ultimate way, because who knows what could be. Now playing Legos, you see those fully charged arrows, they are really fast to charge up compared to what you've seen with Gandalf earlier and even some of the other characters. So when you have a fully charged shot like I do, it does double damage. So getting those double damage Legolas shots in are going to clear these enemies relatively quick and get past these skeleton blocks or these skeleton boulders that do come up, and they do want you to actually play the game. It's supposed to run by everything.
Yeah, seriously. Path of the Dead is also just such a really cool level because of the fog hopping that you've been seeing happening. Um, the fog, when you're in it, forces you to walk, which is super slow. But if you turn around and backwards hop, that's faster. Something that we do a little bit in the Two Towers, but is a lot more relevant in this run here. You can see it's in this section specifically, PJ backwards hopping all the way through the fog, not having to worry about anything. Just getting straight through the fog. And since you're fog hopping and not walking, you don't get caught by this really massive wave of enemies that's right there.
Yeah, if I was to normally strafe through as I did, I would be having to fight these enemies that would like spawn up from the ground. Now that is the way the game is intended to play, but in terms of speedrunning, we'd rather just go through rather quickly. Oh, where these guys want us to stick around and fight. You see, they do not like us just running by and waking them up for no reason. But we're in a hurry, so we gotta get through. We are going to come to another wall here. We are going to come across... Another captain's going to come up, but luckily this guy does not have any armor, and it's interesting how the game designs these captains. Some of them have no armor, some of them do. It is just the decisions that they made coming in with these enemies. But seeing as this is supposed to be one of the first levels you play, they made it much... And to me, it's to make it much more easier to fight and a little more forgiving, as opposed to the armored captains we saw at the courtyard.
Yeah, absolutely. For a lot of new runners, honestly, I would almost recommend that you start with doing Path of the King first, just so that way you can play through the levels and get a better feeling for the combat. Because the ghosts move slower, they're a lot easier to get used to. And with the timing on making sure that you're parrying properly and not getting absolutely bodied by anything else that's happening.
The interesting part of this run will come up in a bit as we're going to go towards this skeleton bridge. We are going to fight 35 guys. And in terms of most fast way to clear them, our best bet is to do these fully charged shots. To get the highest time, this can go a bit wrong if safe shots are mistimed or if enemies swamp you, but let us see how we do coming up. We're going to get this little cinematic cut of this whole underworld going on. The Army of the Dead, the Oathbreakers, really expanding upon their journey in the movie to get the help of the King of the Dead, which we will come up and fight in just a bit. I should take a moment to talk about these allies that we have here, Aragorn and Gimli. They are either really helpful, or they just do absolutely nothing, or they kind of slow you down in their own special way. And they're actually very good speedrunners because they can teleport through the level as you're going.
That's true. That's true. But will they share that information? No.
No. They won't share the code unless Sabline digs out the code. We are left stranded. As you can see, I'm just trying to perfectly time my shots here, getting rid of these guys as quick as I can. We are out of ammo, unfortunately, but luckily we have our character trait, and it's this glowing red thing that gets us in the perfect mode faster. It is nothing too fancy like Gandalf's bubble or Sam's stealth, but as you see, getting perfect mode extra damage can help us clear out a lot of these guys with our melee attacks, which are weaker compared to someone like Aragorn, so to say.
Actually, base melee damage, Aragorn is the weakest, oddly enough.
Huh.
Legolas has a stronger base damage, I'm pretty sure. Let me see if I can find the chart. I know
I guess you wouldn't think that until you dug through the game's like system or tested it out.
Yeah, that's definitely a Sab thing. Sabuline Horizon did an incredible job at calculating out base damages and everything. It was absolutely crazy. So one thing I do want to just take while I guess I can't find it. But while we're in this cutscene real quick, I just want to give people a little bit of a reminder that we are raising money for the Real Hope Project. Make sure you guys are getting your donations in. We are still sitting with a $550 remaining dono matching, so any donations up to the $550 will be matched by somebody else. I'm going to go ahead and just put the donation link and stuff in chat, so that way you guys can go ahead and pull it out. If you don't know who the Real Hope Project is, they are a non-profit organization that has the goal of finding a forever home for every child. So they want to help kids get out of the foster care system who can be out of the foster care system and into a family that they can call home. So please help out supporting them in the best way possible. $600 funds an entire reel, and our goal of $6,000 will fund 10 of them, and just a donation for as low as 25 cents will help expose a child to a family and increase their chances of adoption.
Who enters my domain?
Really wonderful cause, and we have to give a shout out to our host Zozlex here, putting this all together, getting everybody organized, getting it together, putting this whole weekend together. Give him a shout out, guys, in chat. Give him some love, give him some respect, give him some attention. He deserves it. Going in and helping all these runners.
Yeah, I'm touched. So this is the King of the Dead fight. This is the fight that we were talking about. That's really honestly the only big choke point in Path of the King is really this level. There is a lot that can go wrong with it, and this King of the Dead fight has such a precise strat that if you fail it, can lose you about 30 seconds, if not more. So the positioning that happens here in this fight is very precise, on top of the shot timing, the stabs as the King of the Dead goes down. It's all very, very precise, because we have to be at a specific point for damage. If you over damage him by the time you get into the wind phase, then he'll go down too early. If you under damage him by the time you get into the wind phase, it won't work as well either. So you have to be very, very particular on how you go about this fight. And since we're Legolas, using his bow is definitely the most effective method. So you can see PJ alternating between using some charge shots and using some quick shots in order to get a lot of damage out. And the damage is looking really, really good. Hopefully we're going to be able to get it here. So basically what's going to happen is the King of the Dead is going to throw out this wind attack, and then PJ is going to start shooting him and hopefully getting the kill before the King goes down.
Oh no, I missed a shot.
Typically a very close... Oh...
Did miss that last shot, unfortunately. That is due to the janky targeting system as part of it. I mean, part of it is my own doing, of course, but the game has a more or less janky way of deciding how to target, whether it's a boss, whether it's like something else, and even like the spears. And some things like that can happen where you think you're aiming straight on, but it can like jerk in a different way.
And when you're fighting the King of the Dead and he's going down, the game doesn't actually lock on, so you have to manually aim it, which can be really, really hard.
Especially with the game's camera angle, it just decides that you're not aiming it in the right direction. And now we're running away from the rubble and the falling down of this place. Now I'm not too worried about getting caught. It's just holding the direction, but there is an off chance that because rocks are gonna fall from the ceiling and they do have some collision, there's bizarrely the off chance that we can just like get clipped behind them for a little bit too long, but we don't have to worry about that because we are moving relatively well. It's more of a beginner's trap and not getting hit by the rocks on their head or just like unable to move past like some weird collision.
So very similar to the Two Towers run last night, whereas from a spectator standpoint, you won't notice it as much, but from a runner standpoint, you have to take some very, very, very specific paths in order to get to where you need to be. Making sure that you are getting the, making sure that you're avoiding the rocks falling, making sure that you're not getting stuck on random pieces of geometry. There's a lot of areas where things can go wrong. So taking a very specific path is very, very important. So one of the harder things to learn in this game, honestly, is knowing which path to take and what will not only get you there faster, but also avoid the most amount of obstacles.
And there's even the off chance of sometimes the rebel falling in behind you on this section and the last one. There's the off chance that if you just happen to be too close to it, it can actually kill you right there. And then we're right back to the start. It's unlikely that's going to happen in this particular run. We're more likely to die to this mobs of enemies, but it is something to bear in mind here as you're running this game. If you're staying too close to some of the rocks falling, like back there you saw, as I was just entering this part of the game, yeah, it can just decide to kill you. You can't just be too close to either like get hit really hard or just die. And speaking of weird things happening in the game, you can sometimes be standing right on top of enemies due to the bizarre collision.
It's kind of like the game's way of trying to keep you from getting stuck, but at the same time, sometimes the difference between getting up on top of the enemies to prevent you from getting stuck, there's an invisible wall there that's not always that high, so it is very possible to get picked up by an enemy and then drop you over the edge of the bridge. And because you're not supposed to be, this game does not handle out of bounds.
No.
So if you were out of bounds, we have yet to figure out a way where you can be out of bounds and have it be fine. 9 times out of 10, when you are out of bounds, you will get stuck. And you'll soft lock, and in a case like if PJ were to die right now, he would just get sent back to the start of the falling rock section. But if you get soft locked, you have to restart the level and do the entire King of the Dead fight over again, and that ends up being a much more rough experience, especially in a case like 80%, where if thankfully with King of the Dead it's not that big of a deal, but if we were in a level like Cullen Fields, we would have to sit through the entire FMV cutscene again, which would lose you significantly more time because that cutscene can be so long.
And one thing I do know about co-op is that they don't actually have checkpoints, and they do have character lives, and that can have the same effect there. I believe if in the off chance that you guys like die, it's right back to the beginning of the level with those cutscenes.
Yep, and in an instance like the Falling Rock section in this level does have it. It goes back to the Falling Rock, so that almost operates as if it's its own level. So that one might not necessarily be so bad. However, even if it might not be necessarily that bad for the instance of that, if you get caught by like that Falling Rock glitch where it just kills you right away, it doesn't matter how many lives you're at. Both of you are dead.
Right. So now we're coming up to one of the most, actually going over to one of the more fun levels come up is the Southern Gate. It is, yes, there's a massive enemies. They don't have shields though, so if anyone playing through, and we actually have a fun category, or like a category extension called, I believe it's Southern Gate Genocide, where you kill all the enemies in the level as quick as possible. Super fun, super entertaining. I think a few runners like Dino have explored before. As you can see, well, mostly we'd just be running through the level. In terms of grinding for the other category, all levels, pretty much this game's 100%. You spend a lot of time on this level grinding for XP on this because there's about 300 plus enemies throughout to be able to feed off on the experience and get your characters to level 10 to get to the final level, Palantir of Sauron.
Yeah. And, yeah, so you'll see very quickly how chaotic this level is going to get. One of the most popular category extensions that are available, and I think PJ talked about it, is it's called Southern Gate Genocide. And it actually was shown off as a bonus incentive last year. Slade and I did a co-op run of it. And it is literally, you go through and you kill every single enemy in this level, and there's a lot. there's like 200 to 300 that you have to fight through. So like overall, you're spending about 8 minutes fighting enemies, which is super fun. So if you really want like a really chaotic heavy run, that's definitely one that I recommend checking out. It's super cool. And like PJ was saying, it's the level that we go to grind EXP for all levels, and then but for any percent, it's chaotic, and the goal of this is very much to just not die. And it comes in a lot of different forms. Sometimes you have to kill the enemies to get through. Other times, you're just knocking them out of the way and moving on.
I am just gonna kill these guys though, as they can accumulate pretty heavily, and they can chip away at my health when I'm trying to open this gate and deal with this upcoming Mumakil. So I am gonna take a little bit more time. Killing this troll will progress through, but he does have some invincibility frames, so I'm just gonna wait those out, and we're gonna get him down. Now you are stuck in these like little cutscenes. The Mumakil comes in the gate, so sometimes these guys will just like swarm up on you unfairly. But we are just gonna take our time. We are just gonna make sure we're parrying. We're gonna break down these plates. And as Roderick said, because there is no checkpoint here, you could be at the very well at the end of the run, and like you can just suddenly die because you have too low health, and an orc will come off screen and just like swat you, and then it's just like, well, there's your 4 to 5 minutes gone. It actually happened to me while I was practicing the other night. I was going through this level and I was just being a little bit gung-ho, and I ended up just killing right as the end of the gate, as I open this gate here. I'm just dealing with these guys as I open it, and I do have a little bit of breathing room between opening this switch, so I'm gonna deal with these guys, make sure I don't get killed by them while I'm opening, and we're just gonna be on out of here.
Yeah, as you saw in Australia, when we were opening the gate at the end of the sewer there, that one is significantly less forgiving as to how it will sort of drop down and will go back up. This gate is significantly more forgiving. You can spend more time dealing with enemies so that way you don't die. So that's always really nice to know.
We do have that.
You can dump a little thing of oil,
yeah,
so that way there's significantly less enemies over by the gate, so that way you don't have to worry about that.
And yeah, that's the solid strat there. We're just gonna run through, and the level is over. Relatively simple, but it can go wrong. It can take a runner by surprise, and suddenly end their run, or just cause like time loss if they're in a critical point, if they're taking too much damage. And this and that. And our next level, I believe, is Pelennor Fields. So we are entering the last like third of this whole run. There is still the Black Gate, which is quite a long level, but the other two are, this one comes relatively straightforward, and then we have Kirtungul, the last Sam level. And we're just gonna buy our AO upgrade and roll right into it. This will be our last level with Legolas, so be sure to wave goodbye to Legolas once we have defeated the Witch King, everybody's favorite hardcore elf. While we will just be shooting down the Mumakil as opposed to swinging up on them elaborately, taking out some enemies, cutting the bonds, unstrapping them, having the whole thing fall down and have a dwarf say that solely counts as one. Not quite like that, but it is cool to see him blow up after shooting him with a couple arrows. But at first we are going to get to this fight with a bunch of, not just orcs, we are going to see now the evil men have joined the forces of Mordor, specifically the ones from Rune. You saw them in the two towers, they're the armored guys. Well, they are the armored guys, and they are coming in fighting with the Rise of Rohan. As you see, just a moment, charging into battle, but this game decides they don't want them to be on horses, and in just a moment, poor Aomer here is going to transition into just another Rohirrim. Poor guy. Aomer is such a cool dude. I can't believe they did that to him.
They did him dirty.
Dirty.
Did him so dirty. They're like, nah, he doesn't get to actually be a cool person. He's gonna be just another one of them.
Unfortunately.
So this first fight that we're dealing with here is a mob of Easterlings and orcs and Urukai. We have to take out 60 enemies. Now, as a kid, I thought you only had to take out Easterlings, so the Urukai were very, very annoying every time they would come up. Now, because Legolas is Legolas and he has as strong of a bow as he does, we want to use the bow as much as possible. However, that comes with a caveat because Legolas is, you only have 30 arrows to work with. So this section becomes kind of RNG dependent, and you can very easily not be having a good time with arrows and such.
Or with the allies, and they might just knock an enemy out of your arrow shot, or they can draw unwanted attention, and just like not cooperate with you, despite the game having a co-op mode. They aren't the best co-op allies.
No, they're really not. That's why getting an actual partner is better. Or being really crazy like I did like 4 years ago and ran the co-op mode with myself with 2 controllers.
I think I saw that in the category extension. You can have 1 player, 2 controllers as a fun category.
You'll actually be seeing a 2 players, 1 controller run tomorrow. Myself and my wife, Dr. Pie, will be running VeggieTales, Larry Boy and the Bad Apple, Abridged 80%. 2 players, 1 controller.
Now that sounds like a run.
It's gonna be one of the runs of all time.
That is, that is exciting. I don't think people should miss on that co-op. While I myself am not quite acquainted with VeggieTales, I do respect the fans of the VeggieTale community. I know you like to. I know you have a song that you like to play during your speed run. As a.
I do have a VeggieTales song that I play. That's from actually the Lord of the Rings parody. I play a VeggieTales silly song during the segments of Kicking Down Ladders.
So this also has the reason why we pick Legolas for these sections. It would be super, extremely difficult to take out not just these Mimikyu, but this Witch King coming up with Aragorn or Gimli, as much as we love them as characters. Having these fully charged shots and be able to take down them rather quickly is an added bonus to this run. We do have the means of like these interactables, but we have a way going off screen to shoot down the Mimikyu from a distance. And that's going to take it down again. The game now maybe wondering for some people like how is he able to like shoot accurately like that? Well, the game does have like a locking system, so it can lock on things that are off screen. We're having the Witch King here. We have a 1 cycle we're going to demonstrate here in just a moment. Zolzos here can describe it very briefly.
Yeah, so how this works is the Witch King has this attack where he swoops down. We have to wait for that attack to happen before we start attacking the Witch King. If we go too late, oh boy.
I unfortunately missed one of my shots, so we are going to stock in an extra cycle, but we have a way of anticipating which side he will come from in this situation. He will be on the other side because he is not shooting at me, and due to the way the camera is angled. It is unfortunate at this time loss, but we do have to adapt to these kind of situations. Now, this normally would be in one of my runs, at least, it would be a reset. But we are here for the marathon, so we're going to keep going and kind of we're going to keep going and just play through the game. It is all good. Yes, we are a bit behind on our time now, but we are going to quickly make up for it, showing off more of the gameplay. And showing the other side of the level while we're here.
Yeah, so with that Witch King 1 cycle, you have to kind of wait for him to do the attack, and the hard part with the strat is enemies like to run at you, try and take you out, and since they're running at you and trying to kill you, the game can think, hey, no, you want to shoot this guy, and you're like, no, I really don't. But since now where we're at, we only have to do one shot.
Oh. Oh, and I unfortunately panicked. I shot too early, and we're in a sticky situation with as I do not practice this part of the game very often, as I am pretty consistent with my 1 cycles regardless. And unfortunately, the game's RNG does want us to spawn on the other side, and we're just gonna dip out and not fight these guys. And as you can see, it gets a little more tricky as there are more enemies coming around. Especially the off-screen part. We're going to quickly dip over, deal this move kill, and come back around. Now, I do have to mention for playthrough, this was another kind of difficult beginner's trap area. Some people, as the game really doesn't indicate how to interact with the Witch King initially, it just shows where he spawns from. It doesn't actually demonstrate that in order to kill him, you have to run over to that far side of the wall. That just comes from playing the game. Luckily, the game decided to give us a little bit of health, even though we are in a bit of trouble.
That was scary.
Yes, this game has some scary moments, just like that. But we are going to quickly run.
Wow, that was like an instant spawn. Holy cow.
Yeah, we are going to quickly run over. We do have time to finally get this shot off.
Oh wait, the Mobakill's not even dead. I've never... What?
Yeah. Well, we're discovering things about this game. Yeah, unfortunately, we did lose about a minute or two of time. And that was just me missing the shot, but also just the way that enemies decided to spawn and the way our allies decided to be positioned, as they were not in a position to really interact with them.
I'm flabbergasted. I've never seen that.
And the army dead is gonna come way too late, but yeah. Yeah, no, I guess I've never been to that part either. I usually just dealt with the Witch King. That is interesting that the game decides to play tricks on us. It is a tricksy game. Just when you think you have it figured out, it throws curveballs, it does things out of nowhere. It it likes to cause trouble. You think you have it in your grasp, you think you've got it, but no. It can still surprise you, much like hobbits. Learn everything to know about it, they can still take you by surprise. We are going to be waving goodbye to Legolas here. We're going to go out to Sam to the next level with Kirathungel. And we are going to cross over to the last few levels of the game. This is another level that does have a kill counter. Before we can go rescue Frodo, we do have to deal with 80 of these orcs near Kai's. Now, one might think that's going to be a bit tricky just because it's Sam. How could he possibly deal with so many enemies? But luckily, this is where the game's interactions really come to play. It's actually one of my favorite levels. Due to the different ways you can deal with enemies, you're not just stuck to just fighting them like you would with Gandalf and such. For this first area, at least, see we could. Sorry, yeah, go on.
Yeah, this level is just so unique because of all the different ways that you can deal with the enemies. There's so many different ways to do it, and PJ actually himself has developed a crazy route that is easily the fastest route that we're using right now. Using so many different abilities and stuff to make the different abilities, the different interactables, that just makes this level go by so fast. Just because of, even though Sam is not the best in terms of fighting, you can use things like the spears, like the little fire things you can drop to take out enemies quickly.
Yeah, we have these fire pits over here. We saw back in Shov's lair. And we're gonna run over here, and there's more enemies under this little passage to go and kill. We didn't have to deal with a lot of those starting guys because we have ways to mount up these kills, as there are far more than 80 on this level. We're gonna knock over this fire pit. These guys are gonna fight with their dying breath though, so we can't let our guard down just soon. Luckily there is a green health potion for us to pick up. And we're gonna run through, and you're gonna see this big hall where everybody is brawling it out. It is a big, it is a crazy fighting show down there. But we have a way, we're gonna take him by surprise. We are gonna drop something on them. But first, we have something to drop onto these guys, and that's just a little magma thing. We're gonna get a perfect mode. It's a combination of doing what I'm about to do here, as well as killing enemies on the way. There is a number you can, there's a number threshold you can reach as you're going towards the tower, and that lets you, like, and once you get to a certain number, you can go further along the level, as there's going to be more ways to kill enemies as we head towards. But that's going to rack us more than enough kills to start heading towards and rescuing Frodo. As the very amusing part of the game, you can't help but like laugh and be amused by just dropping that on that army of orcs and Uruk-hai.
Don't worry, Mr. Frodo. I haven't
In this,
It is really cool.
So at 62, we can start heading over because there's going to be more things we can dump on enemies. I do have more strats for New Game Plus where we don't have to go here because we're using Gandalf and our projectiles are just going through multiple enemies and just incinerating them. But for Sam, we do have to do the normal way. And these guys are not happy about it. They're chasing me throughout the level. There are a few committed orcs throughout this game that will chase you to the ends of the earth in order to take you down. Some will just kind of let you go. How they decided, I really don't know. Orcs are unpredictable. I said it once and I will continue to say it as I go along. They just do things you don't really expect most of the time. Now there are some more enemies to kill up here. This is not, well, I would mention this is not most ideal, as I did miscount a little bit on there, but there's some enemies we can knock down to get to kill, and there we go. That is a little, if you're in a bit of trouble, there are 6 of them you can kill. It's not the most optimal, but if you do miscalculate in the kill total, you can do that. With Sam, it's obviously a little more difficult. For other characters, you can just, like, I don't know, you can shoot through if you're doing any other categories. We're going to run up here. We're going to come up to this Gorbag fight coming up, and he is one tough orc. Has his own boss cycle and everything. We're going to drop this on this guy's. Another running away section briefly. You can actually die here if you stay on this bridge too long, or just, like, for some reason don't make it. It actually puts you back to the start of the level. It's a funny little thing. And
It's really funny when you're doing it on co-op and you don't quite make it and you just see your partner just go whoop, just
Oh,
drop
yeah.
down. It's hilarious a lot.
Let him go, or I'll have you orcs.
So I'll just here can quickly talk about this boss fight we have here with the Gorbag, the orc.
Yeah, so Gorbag has a very specific the strat that we do. PJ is going to be doing 3 hits and then trying to get 3 stabs each time. If he gets 3 stabs every single time, he will 3-cycle Gorbag pretty easily. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do because you have to time the first stab very specifically, and PJ was able to get it, so that was really good fight. That's as good. That's about as good of a Gorbag fight that you can.
We got that going. Yeah, it's that is the most optimal, but it's also not the most inconsistent because Gorbag can be really janky. He can decide to just like bounce around the place. Sometimes he can just come at you immediately and interrupt your spear throws. He is kind of a wonky character in that sense, but we did get some good luck with him. He did cooperate, which is nice. Makes up for some of the trouble we had last level. And we're going to progress right through the Black Gate.
The Black Gate's a super fun level. It is also a really, really, really chaotic level because there's going to be a lot of enemies we're going to be fighting. Because essentially, by this point in the story, Gandalf, Aragorn have decided that they are going to march upon the Black Gate to give Frodo time to go and destroy the ring. Now, because Gandalf is uber strong, we're going to be taking him.
In a day of great
He has a significantly easier time dealing with the enemies, especially the first boss that we have to deal with in this level, which is the Mouth of Sauron. And with Legolas, you can deal with the Mouth of Sauron doing this way, but the other way, but with Gandalf, it's a lot easier. with Legolas, it's about a frame perfect window for how you can use your Orc Keyword to loot the mouth of Sauron. But for Gandalf, it doesn't even matter.
Together, we now ride upon Sauron's realm.
No.
Create our final
We're about to witness one of the boss fights of all time. It is with Sauron's Lieutenant, the Mouth of Sauron here. You will witness in a second what the demand for pure concentration and focus as we fight this guy with a sword. And without any teeth, apparently. And that weird animation of the the shirt zipping past under his leg.
Message for your master.
So as you can see here, EJ and C, the Mouth of Sauron can't do anything.
Gandalf's
And there is a
Orc
loot
Keyword.
that you can even do without Orc Keyword as Gandalf, but it is very, very difficult. We use it in no upgrades. I discovered how to do it for the no upgrade speedrun.
Yeah, the one where we don't have any upgrades. No ammo upgrades, no health upgrades, no Orc Keyword. In some, now it doesn't affect some of the levels, but this one in particular, there are some struggle. It makes it a lot more difficult. You do have to change some of your strategies when going with like no upgrades. But yeah, here comes the chaos.
Yeah, and no upgrades basically work with basically works as a level 1 run of Return of the King. We have it for Return of the King as well as we have it for Two Towers. I think the Return of the King one is a lot nicer, which is funny to say, but that's just because there's a lot more brutal ways to die in the Two Towers than there are in the Return of the King.
And some brutal ways of getting some of the boss cycles down. As I know on stuff like the Cave Troll and Lure, it's if you do miss some of your timing, it can be some sufficient time loss, especially for that one being a little bit of a tighter run.
Yes.
Or kind of the more or less the equivalent of this game with the breached wall, having these waves of enemies and you don't want to be in certain bad situations. We have some allies here we gotta protect. If we stand near them, we heal them, but of course if they die, it's gonna set us back. And sometimes your allies will just shift position. They may not be where you expect them to be, and like right now I am looking for Gimli. Now he could just come back on over. But you could just be looking away or dealing with an enemy for just a moment, and all of a sudden you'll see that your ally is just dying, and you might think, oh man, he's like taking on like one of the armor guys that you see up here, or he could just be getting killed by one Uruk soldier. We are looking for Gimli. Oh, there he is. He's off camera. I'm just gonna heal him back up. Go back to dealing with his enemies. We want to clear him relatively quickly. As I do believe the time does matter based on how fast you deal with the waves of opponents and progress through the level. Especially when you kill the third guy, you want to kill him as quickly as possible so that you get into the next section of the game, as that is the trigger. So far we seem to be doing okay. We are just going to be Gandalf being Gandalf. Just knocking them down and away. So we get a little bit of there's a bit of auto scroll going on. We use this time to replenish allies' health. We can scope around and make sure no one's trickling in or around. We see these guys like this. Rohan's shoulder is amped up. He's not even looking where he's supposed to be, and he's just swinging away. He is absolutely ready for battle. There's a few of these NPCs here. I always have my attention. Look at this guy. He is ready. He is good to go. He wants blood. One thing I will mention in combat, well, I didn't see much of Orc here. I'm going to demonstrate another combo, Lightning Strike, which I sometimes use. It's not absolutely necessary, but some of the later end combos, at their end hit, they do have an invincibility frame that does kind of help you to fight some of these waves of enemies, especially when you go into, if you're doing all levels, for example, and fighting enemies in the Palantir levels, you do want moments of like those invincibility frames to kick in. You do have to get to that point in the dial-up combo, but there's a way to manipulate the combat as such. This last guy here we go for. We don't have any projectiles, unfortunately, but we do now. And that's going to progress us to the second half of the level. Enemies are now going to be spawning from both sides. The captains are going to be spawning a lot quicker, which is nice for speedrunning. Except for one small thing. For whatever reason, there is a bizarre glitch where sometimes you go after a captain and it doesn't always count towards the meter. And I find that if you kill him too quickly, it's kind of another unexplained anomaly with the game. Some runners may have experienced it. They thought they had killed enough captains, but ones they killed didn't actually like register. There is one off screen we can kill just coming up. We did plug a few spears to him. It is going to count as our 4 of 6. We are going to roll in. These archers have to be dealt with. Luckily in this run, they weren't as bad. They will deal with them quickly, but you can get situations where you're surrounded by orcs and archers, and it makes it incredibly unfun. There's even guys that they decide to spawn over here. And I kind of just wait to deal with those archers before tackling the big guys. We do have to wait a little bit due to that weird glitch of the uncooperative game. We're going to deal with him now. Simple orc heroes should suffice. Getting the perfect mode just shreds through him is really nice. We'll see if that decides to count, so we got that good. So the next guy we killed should be all fine. We are sticking more to like melee attacks, because in the next part of the game you absolutely need enough projectiles to clear out all the Nazgul and such. At least for Gandalf. We're gonna see if we can kill this one extra guy before we go into the next fight. Oh, we're good. We're gonna fight these Nazgul. Like I said before, it should be fine if you have projectiles. If you don't, it becomes a pain in the butt. It's like
doing a race without projectiles is not fun.
Driving without tires. I'll describe it that much. That should be fine. There are some more. There can be some more sticky situations where your allies are extremely low health. But luckily there is a checkpoint in case you do have to like die, or you have to die in order to get enough ammo. But it can be frustrating. But we're gonna get through this black game. We have one final level, the Crack of Doom. We are in the home stretch. We are just going to go up here and deal with Gollum. Which sounds simple enough, but let me tell you, with the game being the way it is, and what we've experienced thus far, more or less, Gollum can kill a run, as some runners have may experience.
My gosh, I'm pretty sure my no upgrades PB I lost like 30 to 45 seconds to Gollum. I remember being very, very excited because I was gonna get a 124, and then Gollum just said no.
No. That can absolutely happen. You could have your courtyard go correct. You could have the Hobbit levels go well. You could be on a really good pace to PB. You know, everything's going sailing smoothly. And as you'll see up here, Gollum may just decide to behave in a way that we don't want. We actually did hit level 10, but we are not going to see Gandalf again. This would be helpful for all levels run, but we do see Gandalf has one last projectile upgrade that we will not get to see in this run, but it makes him just a monster, more than he already is. So here we are, we finally get to play as Frodo in this last level, in this last mission. Frodo, I can't say too much about, other than he's a worse version of a Hobbit in terms of like his, how sluggish his movement and attacks are.
Do you think, because I know Dino is still in chat, Dino, you want to talk about, how Frodo was in your max percent run? Because, yikes.
Yeah, Dino, Dino who actually ran, for those who don't know, max percent is all levels, including the Palantirs, all characters, and get all characters max 20. And it's like 18 to 20 hour run. So yeah, go ahead, Dino.
It is a very, very long run. Dino is currently the only one who has ever attempted it.
So you see Gollum likes to like weave around, bop around, and jump and roll. Luckily he decided he wanted to like move back towards the cliff, but if he was moving towards the center of the ring, for example, that's where it becomes frustrating because he just becomes uncooperative and he'll just decide that you are going to lose time and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, I just looked back. I lost 50 seconds to Gollum in my Dota
Yeah.
So, that was rough.
Very rough. Luckily, he's being unnaturally cooperative, but I could be speaking too soon. He may decide on the last phase of this fight that he does not want to go towards the center, or he may have to. And there's reason to believe that Sam hitting him may have some influence as well. So I have reason to believe Sam can inadvertently influence this final stage as well.
Oh, he most certainly can. So I think Gollum reacts to a certain amount of hits. Because if Sam behaves himself, you can actually manipulate Gollum by standing down, running over to the bridge. Like, we run over to the bridge for a very specific reason. That manipulates where Gollum spawns, and then we want to go over and hit him. But if Sam is the one who hits him, then Gollum might not behave properly, because you only want to hit him once. In solo. In co-op, you have to hit him 3 times. Really random things.
Really?
But it's like, yeah, it's really weird. But it manipulates Gollum in a way that forces him to go and do his jump attack quickly. Now, you can do it without hitting him, but it's significantly more of an RNG.
And that is the only, unfortunately, way to deal damage to them is that killing blow. There's no way to, like, twist and turn things to, like, have him take damage from other sources.
Oh yeah, no, he's immune to lava. Also, time will be coming up here
Yeah.
once we get to the final dab. I like how I said that when I'm the one who's pushing the button to stop the timer.
And time. And that's it. That is our Lord of the Rings Return to the King any percent run. Some ups, some downs, some good, some bad. But so far, that is the game. That is the run. That is the category. We have got through it. We have saved Middle Earth. And saved our run in multiple situations.
Hey, it was deathless. It was deathless.
It was death. Very
But
scary.
it was deathless.
I did leave some of the viewers in suspense. I do apologize for that, but yeah, we kept our head down. We worked through it. We did, and yeah, not much more to say other than we get to see this one last movie cutscene. We do get access to the bonus characters, Mary Pippin and Faramir, and the last few levels. But that, again, that is the run. That is the game. The game that is almost 20 years old now, and the movie that is almost 20 years old now.
Yeah, so if you have any shout-outs or anything you want to give during this time, PJ, now is the best time.
Okay, I want to give a shout out to the Lord of the Rings speedrun community for helping me to get started in the first place, for getting me to be involved in speedrunning whatsoever. It was the first game I ever picked up on speedrunning, and it is awesome to have such a support community. I want to thank Zolchuk here for being an amazing host, and for giving me my own shout-outs. I want to thank him and Dino, who are in the chats. They're the community moderators. They do an awesome job of keeping events, keeping races, and keeping the community going. I want to thank you guys, the viewers, for coming out today and showing support for not just me, the other runners, and showing support for this cause. And yeah, thanks so much, guys, for and thanks so much, guys, for letting me come here and be a runner on this. This is my first time actually doing a run for like a marathon or an event, so it feels good.
Awesome. Thank you so much, PJ, for the awesome run. Welcome to the Marathon Squad, with this being your first ever marathon. It's great to make this one. We've had this a lot this weekend, where a lot of runners have made this their first event, which is really cool.
That is awesome.
So, without further ado, we're going to go to a brief intermission, and then we are going to get ready for our final run for the night, which is Hep and Wana running Stray 100% glitch.